When we talk about crypto for big institutions, it's so easy to get caught up in just token prices. But what if the real story isn't the token at all, but the massive plumbing system that's being built around it? Today, we're going to deconstruct the institutional blueprint that Ripple has been methodically building for years. Okay, let's get into it.
So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the big idea, the new financial blueprint. Then we'll dive into the 4 pillars that make up this whole infrastructure of trust. First is compliance, then the technology, then legal certainty, and finally, how it all culminates in creating a new type of collateral. That's the game plan.
All right, first things first, we have to understand the fundamental problem Ripple was even designed to solve. And it's a huge one, the problem of trapped liquidity in our global financial system.
This image right here, it just lays it out so perfectly. Up top, that's the world we live in now. Banks have to keep piles of cash, pre-funded accounts, in every single country they want to do business with. We're talking trillions of dollars just sitting there, completely stuck. The idea, as you see on the bottom, is to use one neutral bridge asset to connect everything, freeing up all that capital so it can be used more efficiently. It's about unlocking trapped value.
And here's the absolute key takeaway. If you want to replace something as fundamental as the world's financial plumbing, you can't just create a new coin and call it a day. No way. You have to build an entirely new infrastructure of trust from the ground up. And that brings us to the first pillar. So let's dig into pillar 1, regulatory compliance. Because let's be real, for any bank or serious financial player to touch this stuff, compliance isn't just important, it's everything. It's the ticket to the game. And Ripple has been, well, they've been incredibly busy. We're not talking about a handful of approvals here and there. We are talking about more than 75 global licenses and money transmitter licenses. This is a very deliberate worldwide regulatory strategy.
And this slide really shows you the strategy in action. They've gone straight to the heart of the world's biggest financial hubs. That New York DFS Trust Company charter, that is a huge deal. It puts them in the same regulatory league as other major trust companies. Then you add the license in Singapore, the registration in the UK, approvals in the UAE. This is what a compliance-first approach looks like, and it's all designed to make institutions feel safe. Okay, so you've got the licenses, you're legal. Awesome. But now for the real question, how do you actually plug into the existing system? That's pillar 2, the technological plumbing. Now this is one of the most misunderstood parts of the entire puzzle. A lot of people think Ripple needs some big, splashy partnership with Swift, but that's not the strategy. Look at this diagram. Ripple integrates one level deeper, at the vendor level. These are the software giants that already provide the core systems for banks. So for a bank, it's as simple as choosing a different rail for their payment. They see Swift, and right next to it, they see RippleNet. It's an integrated option, not a replacement. And just look at this list. We are not talking about small startups. These are the heavyweights. Finastra, Temenos, ACI Worldwide. These companies are the engine room for thousands of banks around the globe. They're all Swift connected, they're native to the new ISO 20022 messaging standard, and they've already built in Ripple as a settlement option. The on-ramps are already there. So we've got the compliance box checked and the technology box checked. But that brings us to what might be the biggest hurdle for any digital asset, legal clarity. This is pillar 3, legal certainty. This right here was a watershed moment. In July of 2023, a U.S. federal judge made a crucial ruling. Judge Torres said that XRP, when it's sold to the public on exchanges, is not a security. This court ruling provided a level of legal clarity in the United States that very few other digital assets have. And for risk-averse institutions, that kind of clarity is absolutely critical.
And the legal framework goes even deeper. There's this thing called UCC Article 12. Now I know, it sounds super technical and maybe a little boring, but trust me, this is the kind of legal plumbing that institutions dream of. It basically updates commercial law for the digital age, treating digital assets as actual property that can be legally owned and controlled. And that is the absolute foundation for being able to use an asset as collateral.
Okay, so let's tie this all together with our final pillar, which is really the culmination of everything else. The new collateral. This is where compliance, technology, and legal certainty all converge to create real-world economic utility.
And listen, this isn't just some theory on a whiteboard. It's happening right now. Bitnomial, which is a fully regulated derivatives exchange in the US, is already accepting XRP as margin collateral. And the CEO's quote says it all. It gives their clients unprecedented flexibility in managing their capital. This is a live, regulated, institutional use case.
Now, this slide is fascinating because it flips a common crypto idea completely on its head. We usually think that high velocity, meaning lots of fast transactions, is a good thing that drives value. But for a collateral asset, the exact opposite can be true. When an asset is parked or locked up as collateral, its velocity drops to near zero. But in order to secure really large transactions, each individual token has to be worth a lot more. So, for collateral, lower velocity can actually drive a higher price because its value is in its capacity, not its speed.
So what causes this drop in velocity? Well, it comes down to three key institutional behaviors. You've got collateral lockups, just like we see with Bitnomial. Then you've got regulatory buffers, think Basel III rules, where banks have to hold high-quality liquid assets to stay safe. An asset with legal clarity could be perfect for that. And finally, you have things like ETFs, which take huge amounts of an asset out of circulation for long-term holding. All of these things reduce the active supply and slow everything down.
So when you step back and look at the whole picture, you see these four pillars aren't just separate ideas. They're all part of a single interconnected blueprint. Compliance builds the foundation. Tech integration provides the on-ramps. Legal certainty de-risks the asset itself. And all of it leads to the ultimate institutional use case, a new type of balance sheet asset for a new financial system.
And that really brings us to the central question, doesn't it? When you look at all this evidence, the global licenses, the vendor integrations, the landmark court rulings, the emerging use as collateral, it leads you to a pretty provocative thought. Is the blueprint for this new financial system already finished, quietly assembled, and just waiting for someone to flip the switch?